Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to be talking about how to use tables and list layouts to improve readability. Now, when it comes to written communication, getting the thoughts down in writing, electronic or otherwise, is usually the first task. The second is making it clear, making it accessible, making it clearly state and convey the information that you want, ideally without your reader having to read this multiple times. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. You'll see me using the APA course paper template later. If you are looking for copies of these videos to view on the go, we have a YouTube channel. You can view things on our blog. And if you need to make an appointment, or want to make an appointment, go to my.acu.edu, and under the quick links drop-down resources, go ahead and select Online Writing Center and just follow the instructions from there. So we are going to be looking at a couple things today, starting with what do tables look like in APA 7th edition? How do lists look like in APA 7th edition? Looking at an assignment that requires you to gather some information where list or table formatting might be very helpful, and to model that in practice. So with that in mind, let's just dive right in. So table formatting in APA style. There are various elements for a table. Now we've pulled a table from a course here. Now it's not formatted in APA 7th edition, but has several elements that we want to know what they are in terms of vocabulary. So the title of this table is Course Schedule. The first row, that is the heading or header row. You'll see both labels being used. And then if we went vertically from left to right, those are the columns. And at the top in the heading row, we have the column headers, the labels for each column. And then you may have on the left side a set of row headers where the information needs additional labeling or benefits from additional labeling. And so then that's the same idea as with the header row at the top of each column having a label. Well, this is the column at the start of each row having a label for what's in that row. Now, if you're formatting a table in APA 7th edition, there are some guidelines that you want to follow. You can look at those official ones on the APA style website. And they also have some sample tables. Let's just look at a couple though. So here we have a sample table, and we see that it has a label. In APA style, you label and number your table sequentially. So the first one in your document will be table 1, the next one will be table 2, table 3, and so on and so forth. Now, besides having that label with a number, we also have a descriptive title. In this case, it's descriptive statistics and correlations for study variables. You can see that that is in italics. Then we have a heading row, and then in this case, we do have a column where we are listing out what all the data is by labeling each variable, and they happen to be numbered for convenience here. But the data, that's in everything from here on there. So we have this column is giving labels for what's in the rows, and this row, the top, is giving labels for what's in each column. You can refer to this individual unit or that individual unit as a cell. And if we were to just briefly enumerate the rules, we're going to be numbering each table and the table label sequentially. That table label will be bolded. Following line, we're going to be using title case and italics for the table title. Again, that's that descriptive statistics text. There are going to be no vertical lines in our table, and you only see horizontal lines above and below the header row. So that's this line here, that line there, and at the very bottom of the table. And that's it. So lists. Now again, for lists, there are several pages in the APA manual that detail exactly how you do it, but we can extract from that some core principles. First, you want to use lists to group-related information. And how you organize that list should show some sort of relation. Are you just listing all the factors that came up? Okay, if it's just that, then list them in alphabetical order. Makes it easy to find things. Is there a sequence where things are supposed to go in an order? Or a frequency where you list the most common things first, in which case you can give a parenthetical note before the list saying most frequent to least frequent, and then we know, oh, that's why that's in that order. A hierarchy where there is something that's more important than another. Like, oh, our priorities are number one, and usually it's the most important priority is number one. And then you go in descending priority from there. Or importance, same thing. So when you are organizing the information, we use indentation to vertically separate items that you want to stand out or that otherwise would disrupt the flow of ideas. I had a student who came in with a draft that had 42 different variables listed. And that's a big block of text to have in the middle of the paragraph. But if we format it as a numbered list, then you know, okay, I have this for later. Probably glance through, but mostly jump from before to after and refer back to this as needed. And so using an indented list helps the reader make sense of that and connect things, especially if they have to reread part of the text before or after. And so you may gather from this that APA style allows a variety of different list formats. You can use inline lists, where it's just a part of the paragraph, bulleted lists, so it's indented and there's a bullet in front of each unit in the list, numbered or lettered. If you have things in the list items that have commas within them, well, separate each list item with a semicolon, otherwise a comma is fine. If the items in the list happen to be complete sentences, well, capitalize the first letter and put a period at the end. That's fine. Or if you're listing questions, okay, put a question mark at the end. Whatever makes sense with the content, provided you're being consistent. So let's look at some text here that involves a list. Many of the teachers described their days as including an arrival period, an early teaching period, lunch and after lunch refocusing period, an unfocused final period, and a post-teaching meeting period. Now, by itself, we have a set of information about what happened in these teachers' days. And it's there. We can guess some things about why it's in this order, but it'll be a little bit more clear if we have it laid out as a bulleted list. And so this is we see with no change in the text, but with the addition of the bullets, we can see very clearly where each segment begins and ends. And scanning this, we see, okay, this seems to be following the chronology of what's going on in the day. All right, and so that's something where it's not that you couldn't reach this conclusion from looking at the earlier thing, but it is more apparent, and so people can actually read this faster and process it faster. So the particular formatting improves the readability. Now, you might also be asking, well, why not use a number list? And you could. Just be aware that the numbering system may impart a meaning that you intended, or perhaps that you did not. In this case, it's a schedule, and so the numbered list format emphasizes that these are sequential. 1 comes before 2, 2 comes before 3, and so it gives this the sense that these are the 6 elements of the teacher's day. Now, you might have a teacher who's part-time, and they only come in for a couple periods. And so it may seem like they're missing things on the checklist if you're doing that. But, pick what is most appropriate for the meaning that you are trying to impart. All right, so let's look at an assignment that involves listing things, or probably tracking things in one or more of these formats. So this is coming from the CONR 615 course, Managing Conflict in Schools, and it starts with a preamble. While the reflective classroom structure for morning meetings is an excellent tool to help students develop their social-emotional intelligence, the response of many already overworked teachers may be, "Not something else. I don't have time to teach the content skills. My students must learn." However, morning meetings can be a great way to reinforce content while also increasing social emotional intelligence, which also helps to raise student achievement. For example, during the sharing portion of morning meeting, a third grade teacher who is in the middle of a science unit on the universe might have each child name their favorite object in space and tell one fact about it, and then tell why it is her favorite. In this assignment, you are asked to plan and conduct a morning meeting. All right, so with a morning meeting, there's going to be a body of information that you want to do, probably with some of it being in some order, and you want to see clearly what your goals are, what you're asking your students to do in each of those. Okay, so that's suggesting some things about how this information might be divided. And we see, after reviewing the outline and critiques given by your classmates in a prior discussion assignment, make any updates you think should be made to your morning meeting outline. Aha! So when I see morning meeting outline, that's saying one of two things to me. Either we're going to have some sort of indented list, or we're going to have a table that is going to be listing the elements here. All right, and then the rest of the assignment, when you record yourself conducting a morning meeting and uploading it, that I don't think will be a problem. But let's talk about how you might be arranging and presenting this sort of information in APA style. And if we briefly look at the rubric here, we see that the revised outline is the key thing here, besides just having all of the content that they're asking for. Okay, well, at this point, let's go ahead and grab a copy of our APA course paper template, and let's make some tables and lists. And I have here a copy of our APA course paper template, and we're just going to go ahead and remove the placeholders here, so you can see the working space as it will be when you're working with your own copy of the template, which again you can download from the Writing Center website and from many course websites. So let's say we have a number of items, and the exact details aren't important, we just want something to look at. So let's say that we start numbering them. And something you'll notice is that when I type 1 period space, where it detects that I'm typing what looks like a numbered indented list, and so it starts using the list tool, which good, that's fine for our purposes here. All right, introductions, welcome. Now, I'm just making up things here for the sake of the example. You can put whatever you want. Now, if you're just giving a list of here are the high-level things, that's fine. But I'm guessing that your outline is going to have more detail than that. You might, for example, be preparing this outline and you want it to be able to give a substitute teacher everything they need to know to follow what you do to get that consistency. Or you might have long COVID and you want to prompt yourself to do exactly what you want to do. And looking at this, you might say, okay, most important announcements, the principals list announcements. And if you've got the big list for the day, you might have a closing announcements thing here. Now, I don't know how many students you have in your class. We'll just, for the sake of the example, say that you have a small number. All right, so if we look at this, using all of this information in an outline form actually gives us a very clear way of just starting here and going on down. Now compare that if you were to write this out in paragraph form. Now, it's not that you can't get the information from here, but it's much more clear and much more usable in this fashion. So this is an example of where an outline form is actually very helpful. And because this is listing things in the order that they take place, using numbers here, 1, 2, and so forth, and letters A, B, and C, is helpful because there is a sequential order for this. Now, if we're putting this in a table, which I don't think this is an ideal format for that, but it could be used for that, then we would want to start out by creating a table. And let's give this one, let's say, we'll add a few more rows here. So what will we have here? Well, order, action, phrase, notes, perhaps. And we can expand this to fill the whole space. So here, I'm just going to start showing this. And when you are looking at the table, the question of what is the function, why are you putting this information here? Well, that's what leads us to ask what format would be most helpful. So if it's listing an action, okay, I do this, and to do that I read this, and then here's what I'm tracking. And then, if they don't, go back and go through this row again. This is a helpful layout when you're trying to map what you do and why with this discrete, oh, this is the action, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm saying. Well, that's something where organizing the explanations may be a reason to move to a table. Now, when you're formatting this, in general, you want to use title case for these labels here. Within the cells, be consistent. So here, this is in sentence case, this is in sentence case. So this should be in sentence case as well. Alright, now we want this to be formatted in APA style, so I'm just going to really quickly add something here. So we have some more text to look at. And Probably with this set, we wouldn't want to use the same label there. And so we see, oh, okay, we need some detail there. Now, to format this in APA style, we can only have horizontal lines on the top and bottom of the header row and at the very bottom. So if I right-click or control-click on a map and select Borders and Shading, none, that'll get rid of all of them. And then I can use this box to put a line at the very top and the very bottom. See, we have no more vertical lines, just those two horizontal ones. And then I'll select this row, same thing, right-click or control-click on a map, Borders and Shading, and I can add this bottom line there. Alright, now we need an introduction here. Or rather, we need a label for our table. And so this will be in bold. And this will be in italics. And in title case. And there we have it. We have our table. It's got a label, a title. It's got content, and you can fill this in later. Now, this is helpful for understanding, and if you were analyzing what you're doing to explain to someone else, or teaching a workshop, it might be helpful. But if you're just giving notes for what to do in what order, this is a superior format because we don't need all those explanations. It's, oh, well, they didn't do it, so I just go back up to here and keep going. So, again, you want this to be matched to the task. What does your reader, which is going to be you in many cases, what would be the most helpful way to arrange this information for you? And for something like a meeting agenda or a list of tasks that you do, it's probably not going to be paragraphs. It might be a list like this, with indentations. It might be a table. It depends who is the audience besides just you. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu. You can sign up for an appointment by going to my.acu.edu and under the resources drop-down, the quick links, selecting Online Writing Center and just following the instructions. With that, have a good night.